All right, well, Brad, start with Mason's re-signing. I mean, he spoke so glowingly about how much has sort of changed and how much that impacted his decision. It must be great from your perspective to hear that from a senior player.
I just think it's great for our club that a really important player in Mason, and a really important part of our future and what we're trying to build, can see the vision. And we've been very clear, both publicly and privately, that we wanted Mason to, or I have anyway, in terms of I didn't want to blackmail him to stay here and put pressure on him. And I haven't spoken to him previously about staying, leaving. The only thing I've said, it's a big decision for you. So that's the era we're in now with free agency, and it's a big decision for him and his family, and he needed to consider it. And that's, I think, what all players should do. And as a club, we can't hold up our end of the bargain and show the vision and the path forward. Then, that's our responsibility. So the fact that he's gone away and I think he's articulated that he had a good think about it and looked and assessed his options and has decided that Essendon's where he wants to be is a great vote of confidence in our club.
Is there some satisfaction, though, that this is a tangible sort of example of where the change is?
Well, I think actions speak much louder than words. I mean, anyone can stand there and talk, about your club and what you're trying to do, but that was, my philosophy all along, both with Darcy and Mason, that they've got big decisions to make and they should assess their options. And I'll do my job as best I can, and the club will do the best job they can to sell the vision, but ultimately they've got to make the decision, and we didn't want to coerce them or force them into making that call. So and certainly Mason's the first of those two that's made the decision. So I think, the actions speak volumes.
Is there also an advantage in the broader message it sends to the industry, to the footy, when you're in the marketplace, that this is an enviable place to be?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, the Essendon is a great club. I mean, I've always held the club in great esteem, both as an opposition player and former opposition coach. But seeing it internally, we've had some challenges over the last period of time. Everyone knows that. But I think there's a lot of upside here, and what we're trying to build here is really exciting. And the fact that our players can see that's really encouraging. And our players do talk to each other. So I think that the fact that Mason's spoken so glowingly about the path he sees forward holds us in good stead.
How long until you're saying the same thing about Darcy? How confident are you?
I just don't think about it that way. I mean, I'm just trying to do my job to the best of my ability and help the club build a world-class football program that all of our players can see that this is where they'll play their best footy. And I think if we do a really good job of that, then the decision becomes a bit easier. But ultimately, it's the same for Darcy. He's got a really big decision to make. He's entitled, and actually, I believe he should, assess all his options and make the decision that's best for him. And we'll hold up our end of the bargain as a club. And obviously, we hope we get the right result for us. But again, the best way to go about these things, in my opinion, is to assess all your options and make a decision without being coerced or blackmailed.
Obviously, you made the decision to play Sam Wiedemann in defence before Ridley got injured on the weekend, but is he now someone who's in the equation to cover for him this week? Yeah,
he is. Yeah, he played really well in defence, given he's probably played about a half a footy in his life, probably, in defence. He's got a lot of attributes that suit playing as a key defender. We've got to train. I don't like sort of trying to preempt selection before we train until we've got all the facts available to us, but yeah, he's certainly an option.
Where's Jake Stringer sit this weekend? You sort of flagged that maybe a week off might do the best for him. How does that sit?
Yeah, I would take the medical advice on that, that if that was the case, that's certainly what we would do. But we've had a few of these this year. Dylan Shields another example where those players are not medically ruled out. But I think it's probably plain for all to see that in Shields' case, he just couldn't play the way we know he can, so he couldn't function as well. So it becomes a bit more of a nuanced decision as to whether they play or not. And again, Jake's medically available. We've just got to assess whether he can perform somewhere near his best. And like all coaches say and all players say, once you declare yourself fit to play, you're fit to play. But particularly at round 20, every player's got a degree of fit to play. So he'll do a bit of training today, and we'll see how he functions. He's medically clear, but we've got a decision to make in actually, how he trains and whether he can display the attributes that he's got, which is strength, power and speed.
Does it feel do or die this week, even though you could mathematically lose and still make it, but does it feel like you really do need that win to get the season back on track?
No, it doesn't feel that way to me. But I accept that it's a good narrative to get fans to the game, I suppose. But I mean, for us, we're just so process driven in terms of what we do. I've said repeatedly throughout the year, as soon as you start to focus too much on what might happen or what the outcome might be, you take her off what it's right in front of you. And so that's what all elite athletes have to constantly bring themselves back to, which is what's right in front of them in the moment. So a big part of my job is to get the players focused on what's important each contest, each quarter, and not getting concerned about what the outcome is.
Does the finals equation have any bearing on how you manage Sam Draper and Dylan Shield? Obviously, their timeframes aren't really set yet. If you are in genuine contention in a couple of weeks' time, does that influence how you bring them back?
Maybe degrees, but I mean, we've been really consistent all year that while we're at the pointy end of the season, and you go into a season wanting to be in contention. I don't think anyone goes into a season thinking that they don't want to play finals. I mean, we want to be in a position where we can contend, but we've said all year that we've got a really strong focus on the long term, and I think it's a risk playing any of your players when they're not 100%. And it's the same with bringing new players into the team. We want to bring them in when we feel they're ready to play and ready to perform. So I think with Drapes and Shealy, it'll be a matter of just rehabbing them as best we can, and if they're very close to 100%, they'll play, and if they're not, they won't.
Just with Sam, is there a chance he won't play again this year, though?
It's massive hypothetical that I can't answer, unfortunately. I mean, he's a week-to-week proposition in terms of he started running again. We'll reload him, and if the build-up goes well and he's pain-free and he can perform, then he'll play. But it's just really hard for me to I'm trying to answer it as honestly as I can. The truth is, I just don't know.
Since he's been out, a lot of the numbers have dropped away. You've also played some very good teams in that period, but scores from clearances, and those sort of things. Is there anything you can do short of personnel, but to be more creative in how you approach it?
Yeah, there is, but sometimes you rob Peter to pay Paul. So, we do take a bit of a longer term view with all this as well. I think there are some short term things we can do to try and stem the bleeding, but when it gets to the point where you're completely going away from the system that takes a long time to embed and a long time to coach, I think it can be counterproductive. So we'll in the short term, we'll try and do some things to arrest that, but we've still got belief that we can play better than we have the last 2 weeks, regardless of the way we set up around stoppages.
Will you hand a debut to a young number 5 potentially?
He's getting closer and closer. Again, don't like to preempt anything before we train, because we've got to make sure everyone's we've got a fit list to pick from, and then we'll have match committee this afternoon and probably again tomorrow morning to finalise the team. But he's an exciting player, and he's got a lot of great attributes. And the temptation is just to bring him in because he's exciting. But we want to set him up to succeed, and we've had some things that we've wanted him to work on at VFL level. And he's so coachable that the last 2 weeks he's really improved those areas. So he's getting very close.
Just Setterfield final leg, and how important is a player like him to this side, given Stringer's struggling to stay in the middle for long periods?
Yeah, look, I think at the start of the year that Setterfield and Shield were, we missed Parrish for a big chunk too. They were mainstays of our midfield, and so it's been a challenge to cover them. But the silver lining has been the emergence of Hobbs, Caldwell, Perkins, and even on the weekend, I've got clearly a lot of respect for Bontempelli, Liberatore, Treloar. So it was, in a way, well, not in a way, it was a very disappointing performance for us. But again, the silver lining that Treloar, Bontempelli, Liberatore are really good, experienced AFL players, and their opponents for the most part were, a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 23-year-old or something. So there's a lot of upside in getting those guys in. So while we've missed Setters and Shealy, it's given us opportunity to play others.
Do you think your scoring troubles then over the past fortnight have been on the back of those younger mids against more experienced mids, or is it your forward half that needs to improve as well?
I think the forwards, certainly the previous week, unless the forwards were kicking them backward to centre, it wouldn't have made much of a difference. We need to get it there a bit more often. The other weekend we had enough entries to score, so we were a bit disappointed with our efficiency going forward. But I think it's a combination of all those things. We've got a specific way we like to move the ball, and we didn't do that to the level we would have liked on the weekend. But I think across the course of the year, our ball movement's been pretty good.
And just quickly, have you done anything differently this week to sort of get the guys up? You mentioned sort of post-game, you might need to rethink that.
Yeah, we have. I mean, there's a couple of things mentally and physically. I mean, a longer break helps, but back to our spiritual home at Windy Hill this week. A really light, but I mean a really good training session there. It's the 8-day break's come at a good time for us, and I can't fault the players' effort and their work rate, and the balance that I talked about post-game was a bit more of we've got this constant desire to improve our players and really focus on development. But, this stage of the season, it's hard to get the amount of work you want to get in during the week and still have them, cherry ripe on game day. But again, for all of our fans, that I think they understand that we've got a really long-term focus in what we're doing, and we want to win every game we play in the short term, but the long term is the absolute focus.
Just quickly, I know you've been really good with your time. With that in mind, is it a failure if you don't make finals this year? Have you done enough throughout the year to show that you're on an upward tick?
It's just such a really even competition that, it'd be interesting if everyone actually selected their top 8 for the end of 2024 now, what they would have. And I suspect there'd be a massive discrepancy between what it'd look like. So, where you end up at the end of the season, is just the sum of all the parts that you put together. But I think Mason summed it up pretty well. We're trying to set a path for the future and set a really stable foundation. And I think if, there are a lot of different ways you can measure success. But in terms of the foundation that we built for the future, I think there have been a lot of positives.